It's time to go beyond the headlines, cause I don't put in overtime just so I can headline. Okay, now it's Fox Sports, I'm live with Renee. Going hard every day, sports rapping every play. Different segments for your favorites, coming at you daily with positive vibes, yeah, we some game changers. Basketball, football, soccer, with different interviews, you never know who may pop up. Listen, only on Beyond the Headlines, this is Beyond the Headlines. Only on Beyond the Headlines, this is Beyond the Headlines. Only on Beyond the Headlines, this is Beyond the Headlines with Renee Washington.
Week 1 of the NFL season is in the books, so it's only right that we bring former NFL player and former offensive lineman Scott Peters to the show this week. Welcome to Beyond the Headlines, Scott.
Hey, Renee, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
No problem at all, no problem. So let's get right into let's start with your career. Okay, you're doing a lot of things now since you have retired from the league. You played for 7 seasons in the NFL, and so you have a lot of experience. You talked before the show even about guys that you know that are still playing today. You know, what was it like as you made that transition, getting drafted back in 2002 by the Eagles, and now becoming a rookie senior at the highest level?
That's a big transition. I mean, it's like a big transition when you transition from high school to college, but the biggest thing that you notice when you get to that level, like from high school to college, is the speed and the size. You know, the guys are all a little bit bigger. Everybody's kind of a better athlete, and the game is faster and more complex and all that. And then the parity of the players, there's a smaller gap between the talent levels, you know, for me anyway, when I got from high school to college. Then I get from college to the Eagles. I was drafted to the Eagles, and I remember my first day being like, whoa, wow, this is crazy fast. And literally the first exposure to that. And what I found was, you know, you kind of adapt to that. You adapt to that quicker than you might think. You just haven't been exposed to it before. But for me, it was the speed and the volume of information, and and I played center, so you're in charge of a lot out there, and the quarterback safety, which is hey, it's not to be messed around with. You got to know what you're doing, be able to put all the guys in the right place and see understand what the defense is trying to do to you, so you can protect your guy. And so that was the biggest difference. And then the physical part, everybody's pretty physical at that level, obviously, but that was, but they're smarter. I mean, it's just everybody's got more. There's no weak links on the defense. You know, like in college, you might play against a team, and there's a couple really good players, but you can have your way with everybody else, and then, at least from my perspective, and then you get the NFL, it's like, wow, everybody's good, and everybody's smart, and now at the end of the game is information. It's not being bigger, faster, stronger than the guy anymore. It's about really trying to, adapt and become the best player you can be. That's through technique, that's through just awareness and understanding the game and stuff. So it's a lot of stuff between your ears.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, in the college game, you do have some teams, and definitely within teams, some players that you can kind of, that are a drop-off, whereas in the NFL or any professional sport, everyone, once you make it to that level, everyone is talented. Everyone's good. So you did also have the chance to win an NFC Championship back in 2009 with the Cardinals. What was that experience like, being part of a championship team? I mean, obviously you guys didn't win Super Bowl, but
that part was. I mean, you tend to not focus on. You forget about the fact that that's a very successful season, but really, sadly, every year it's the saddest thing. But the fact is that only one team is going to be happy with the outcome at the end of the year, and so we were close. We were second in line, and that was really difficult to see, to have happen, because it was a close game. But at the end of the day, I mean. Yeah, you look back, you're like, that's pretty cool. We got to do that, and especially now that I'm not playing anymore, it was a great experience. And the reality is, I mean, I was on a few teams I was on 3 separate teams that made it to the NFC Championship game, which was really pretty big, 3 separate teams. And I never thought in my wildest dreams. I went to Arizona State, and we would laugh because while I was at ASU, the Cardinals would get fewer. We used to share the stadium before the Cardinals built the new stadium. We used to share Sun Devil Stadium with the Cardinals.
Wow.
We would play on Saturday, they'd play on Sunday, and we would laugh because they would only have like 8,000 fans in the stadium, and they would have and out of the 8,000, like 6,000 were for the opposing team. It's like the away team. So yeah, it was like they just weren't really ever a serious contender. And then My last 2 years in the NFL were with the Cardinals, and wow, that was just a cool thing to see that organization turn around and the stars aligned to get to that point. Now, I don't know if we'll make it back there anytime soon, but it was pretty awesome to do because having lived in Arizona, being part of that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's a full circle moment. You talk about playing and sharing a stadium with them, and then here you are, part of the Cardinals franchise when they were at their height. Of course, you look from the outside, like from a fan's perspective, or just a fan of the game in general. You look at that loss to the Steelers. You guys lost by 4. As a hard-fought game, fun game to watch. But you came on the wrong side of it. But for you, in itself, it was an accomplishment and an honor to be there, and also to know that you at one point represented Arizona State, and now here you are with the Cardinals. And no, I also do not think the Cardinals will be there anytime soon. Although it's Kyler Murray at quarterback, who knows what'll happen. But good, yeah. They might have peaked a few years back. So, but for you, do you have a memory that you look back on? I don't know if it is that Super Bowl game in 2009 or anything like that you look back on that was kind of like a very changing moment for you, that all your hard work growing up playing football and now being in the NFL that really summed up this is that I made it moment?
It's really funny you say that. I got to be honest with you, and the answer is no, and this is kind of a little strange because one thing that I realized, and I've thought about it a lot as I reflect on things, is that when you're involved in playing, like when you're playing at that level, very seldom do you actually stop and quote smell the roses or enjoy the moment or experience feel satisfied at any level. And it's almost like you're conditioned that way, or maybe I'm not conditioned that way. Maybe that's just how I am. I don't know, because I still feel like I'm still like that, with what I do now currently, work business-wise and career-wise. But back then, it was like you never really sit there and even take a moment to enjoy. And wow, I made it somewhere, because it's the environment's so competitive. You can't even put your guard down for a second. Or at least that's how it feels. So I never had that moment. And then for me, it was really a situation where my career was marred by injuries. I had a lot of injuries just coming back. So it was like, I guess the moment I'm most proud of, I would say, is just, there's no moment, but I think I really got my mettle tested. I had my character tested. I had all the things about me tested. My will was tested in many ways. My toughness and all those things was tested to the level that I never thought was possible because I wasn't aware of it. And then I got tested and put in it, and I was very proud. I'm proud of the way I responded to it. I mean, everything I did I would never give up. I kept coming back. And despite some things, so personally, I draw strength from that, knowing, hey, I can put me in a bad spot. Not that I want to be there, but I know I'm going to come out the other side stronger. So those kind of things were definitely meaningful, and it really kind of did help me advance through, take those principles and apply them toward other aspects of life and career-wise and otherwise.
Yeah, you talked about the challenges of injuries and the adversity that you faced being tested personally. Do you think there was a specific team, staff, or even players that you got a chance to play with that really helped you grow to get to that maturity level where you now can look at a challenge and just overcome? I know part of being an athlete, I played professional soccer, part of being an athlete is you are constantly overcoming adversity. But do you feel like there was one specific team or staff or person that really helped you grow the most as a man, more than just as a football player?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think I've had some really great mentors, and I've had some great teammates and friends, but everyone's unique. Everyone's situation, especially in the NFL, is very unique. So, unfortunately at that level, it's and this is just the nature of it. I mean, I'm not saying this negatively. It's just that you're literally a one-man island on the team. So you have buddies on the team, you have guys you respect, but in the end, it's each man for himself out there. So you can get support, but everybody's kind of going through their own thing. So ultimately, what I tell kids and what we do currently with players, and I believe that in society there's a lot of people talking about. I don't know where this comes from. Everybody makes fun of it. Everyone makes fun of it, yet it seems like it's still prevalent. Is where everybody's a winner mentality, and everybody gets a gold or gets a trophy and a banner and whatever. And I see this in youth sports. I see this in high school, different levels of sport, where we want to just give people a gold star, even if the performance wasn't that great. And I feel like the best teachers, and I tell people this is one of my favorite lines, is that you either win or you learn. So in the face of adversity, when you're facing any kind of level of adversity, then it's a chance to grow. And then, you have two choices. You can either just act like, you got victimized or something, or, I got screwed by the coach or whatever. Or you can be like, hey, whatever, I don't care what it takes to overcome that. And I'm going to learn something from that mistake because it's going to make me better. And so I think, for me, the biggest lesson or the biggest teacher, I guess, was the experiences, not necessarily any one individual or team, but, going through things, recognizing, hey, how did I respond to the situation? Because I look back and, I've second-guessed certain things that I've done. Just, naturally as I reflect back, I'm like, hey, did I need to did I handle this that way or whatever? And a lot of times I go, I probably did my best at that time how I knew, but I guess I learned, and in retrospect, I've become a better person. I've become a stronger person maybe because of those experiences. So I'd say, the experience itself was probably the biggest mentorship I've ever had.
Yeah. No, that makes complete sense. Looking, especially now, as you have stepped away from playing, you can reflect more on the experience as a whole, which, as you mentioned, we don't tend to do that in general with anything in life until it's over. Then we look back on it and say, oh, you know what? I learned a lot, or, whatever it may be. So I love that. And, yes, the participation trophy mentality is very prevalent today in the world, unfortunately, in all youth sports. You sign up, you get a trophy.
I know, it's detrimental, and that's the thing. It's so when we do camp, the problem is I always make this make it non-emotional. Let's not talk about people. Let's talk about bears in the wild. The mama bear's job is to do one thing: is to prepare the cubs for the wild, and it's dangerous out there. So the mama bear's not going to let me sneak you some food. Let me make it easy for you. It's we have to harden you to get you prepared. And if you're not honest about winning and losing, it's you just think that you won something. It's confusing. And there's kids that it's confusing to kids. Plus, either it's confusing to them, they don't understand, what to make of it, or you're just creating a bar that's really low for people. Then they think they're actually successful, but then you get out of college or whatever you do, and you throw into the world, and you're like, man, I'm not making it. And then you just have a meltdown because you've never really been put through trials before. You never even acknowledged the mistake before. Because if you don't do that, then how do you grow? So anyway,
exactly.
That's my but yeah.
I like the bear comparison because it's if the cub is always having food given to them, how are they going to learn how to get it themselves? Or when you have that silver spoon growing up, you don't know how to handle adversity and when things aren't given to you, or that entitlement. So yeah, that's a whole conversation in itself. But yes, very, very spot on. Unfortunately, I see that a lot.
And that's one of the things that sports can really do for kids, if you do it, if it's done right. Hey, there's a winner and a loser. It's not everybody wins. Otherwise, and so competition can be very positive for kids. And because if it's done the right way, and so our society, I don't know where we're going with this, but I'm just saying, our society, I see parents are almost not about development, almost about living vicariously through their kids more than they are say sports and all the different things. It's more about the parents, not all the time, but you see that more and more in our culture. And the kids can do no wrong, whereas I don't know, my parents. If someone told me my parents did something wrong, I'm guilty until proven innocent. Now it's the other way around. It's you said my son did this, he didn't do that. And it's well, you know what? Now your son, maybe he did. Who knows? But in the end, I think sports, if they're done right, it gives kids a real. It can be an objective way to develop yourself, and also to be show kids how to grow up. Some kids just can't. They don't want to play.
Yeah.
But if you're in the environment and you're not making it, you're not the starter, then hey, that's fine. You're going to find different situations in life where you're not really where you want to be right away. So that's okay. So what do you want to do from there? And the best is if you put your mind to it, you work toward things. A lot of positive experiences can come away that really are lessons that you can apply to anything. And I think sports are more needed now than ever. And that's kind of why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, that's such a great point because aside from winning, which we all play a sport to win, you don't ever train and work all the hours you do expecting to lose. But more than that, it does teach you how to lose. It teaches you how to learn from mistakes. It teaches you life skills that translate across any job, relationship, anything that you're doing in your life, and especially how to deal with adversity. And you talk about how you use that same model in the work that you do now, Tip of the Spear. Can you share with us why you even founded Tip of the Spear in the first place and what it's all about?
Yeah, so when I mentioned the injuries I had, and then when I was playing, I just kind of had, I literally in 7 years, I was on injured reserve for 4 years, and that's kind of unheard of. I mean, not a lot of people even kept it. It's like 2 years in injured reserve, like you're done. Like, I was fortunate, because when I did play, I played very well. I got a chance to play against all pro players, and I did very well. I shut the guys down when I played, so I didn't play as much as guys would expect for a 7-year player to play. I had a pretty major injury from my ankle. I basically had a big chunk of bone taken out, and then I had to do these surgeries. We did these surgeries called microfracture, which is not a recommended surgery. It turns out, it doesn't really work, so great. We didn't know that then, but I used jiu-jitsu. I got involved in Brazilian jiu-jitsu of all things, which is like a self-defense martial art, and it's something where it's used, smaller guys can, defeat bigger guys with technique. And I was always a big guy, obviously, and I was going into these gyms, and I was getting destroyed and submitted by small men, like small guys like half my size, twice my age, that are bankers, they're like not athletes and stuff, but they put me in terrible positions, and I was like, whoa.
Oh, wow.
It was enlightening in a way. Yeah, it was almost like, and I'm like I'm one of the strongest players in the NFL. In the weight room, so I was like, "How is this? I've never had anybody do this."
Right.
Field. That's
that is
crazy. It is. So if you can, get past the initial ego burst there, and I did, I was like, "Wow!" It's just you start looking at things differently. So I started at an MMA gym, a training facility after I retired. Jiu-jitsu really did help me extend my career due to the injury I mentioned. It strengthened my ankle, did a lot of things for me, and helped me become a better player in an indirect way, just some of the drills we did. I got involved. I started an MMA gym upon retirement called Fight Ready, and we have a couple I sold that gym, but we have a few world champions there now still. Henry Cejudo is UFC champion and 2 belts, and
nice.
That's a gym I started. Yeah, it's cool. I'm still involved in it, but I don't do it anymore. I decided that, what I extracted from that experience was, hey, I'm a former NFL player. I'm not an expert, to be reckoned with as an MMA guy. I'm not an expert at that time when I started it, or jiu-jitsu, but I wanted to become that. So I brought in all these guys from around the world that I could find the best guys for jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, which is like kickboxing, wrestling, grappling, all these judo, all the different all the different art forms that kind of comprise what MMA is. That's a series of different martial arts combined into one. And I started competing in jiu-jitsu because I had these really good guys, and I did very well in that. I won 2 world championships in jiu-jitsu, and I started training UFC. Yeah, I started training UFC fighters, world champion UFC heavyweight champions. I became a coach and a training partner of them. And I kind of, at that moment, I said, okay, I've done it. I'm not just a football guy now. But what I really when I reached that point, it was really cool. I enjoyed that part, but I really, really wanted to get back to football, though. And I took a couple years off of football. What was really neat was the experience that you mentioned before about stepping back from a situation and recognizing and reflecting. And one thing I did was I started to look at the way we were doing football all differently. I go, wow, we're like not even technical at all. It's just, hey, get out there and smash guys harder. And fighters don't train that way. It's like bigger in football. It's bigger, faster, stronger. That's the name of the game, according to the culture or whatever that's been long-standing. And so that's what they do because and I think the reason why they do that is because, number one, either they don't know how to do technique, they don't know how to teach technique, or they don't care, or it's just because of the regulations restrict the time allotment. So what do we do in the off season in football to get better? Well, if you're a lineman, you're a guy that operates in the tackle box. You're not a receiver or a quarterback that can throw the ball around. But your job, you're simply like, all right, cool, let's just get as big and fast as strong as we can. That's how we get better. But the correlation isn't direct. There's no correlation between being better and being bigger and faster and stronger all the time when you have skills. And so what I do is I learn, it was enlightening to me to see these fighters. They spend so much time before they even think about their opponent. They think about developing and leveling up their skill set. And the degree of skill that they have is like so detailed. I mean, it's not just hit harder. Like if you don't win the fight, the coach doesn't tell you to get tougher or hit harder. That's what you'll hear in football. Come on, man, you got to want it more. And it's like, no, I want it. I mean, how could I possibly want it anymore? I got beat, but I need a technical answer here. So I saw the way that fighters are going in the cage, and as I'm coaching these guys, which I took very seriously because I'm the only thing that can help them in a bad spot. I'm sitting there yelling at them and instructing them. I cannot mince words when they're in a bad position. Like if they're on the ground and they're getting beat up, like I got to be calm and say, take your left hand, place it over his right tricep, take your right foot, put it on his hip, extend the hip, put your left hand on the ground, or kick your right foot back and stand up. I mean, I can't make that up. Like, I have to.
Wow.
I can't be like. That's very direct, and I'm just giving you one example of something. But like, I have to be very clear and specific. And in football, it's like it's non-specific. It's come on, man, hit him. Come on, you got to play with leverage. I mean, it was like never. It was almost like are you serious? This is the coaching we're getting. I mean, and so I found like a passion about maybe directing some of the ways and applications of martial arts toward football to help make these guys optimize. Because what I did was I didn't take martial arts techniques and apply them to football, but I took concepts. So biomechanical concepts, like you twist your hand this way, just subtle things. And I showed players to meet football objectives, NFL players. I'm like, this is something that you could use to try to meet this objective. And 100% of the guys were like, wow, that's the best I've ever seen. I was like, great. So I went up to Washington. I got hired by the University of Washington in 2012 to train their linemen on hand fighting techniques and drills. And the amazing thing was it was a lot of fun, but I got a call from them. I mean, obviously the team did very well, so the offense had their top offensive production in school history, which was really cool, especially running the ball, which is physical. They used their hands to do that. And then the most interesting thing, the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing now, which I'll explain at the tip of the spear, is that the trainer called and said, hey, Scott, this is unbelievable. We've had 0 concussions and 0 stingers for the first time in our school's history. For the guys that you trained, like no one ever, it was all hands. And we even had accelerometers in the helmets that's measuring G-forces, and nobody even had a significant hit throughout the season. And I was like, whoa, I literally, at that moment, I'm like, my purpose has changed. This is when CTE was starting to hit the headlines pretty hard. And I was nervous about that. I'm going, wow, man, I played like this for a long time, and because I knew no different. There's a better way to do it. And oh, by the way, the kids they're staying safe. But by the way, they're dominating people. And I thought, I'm selling my gym. I'm starting my business. I'm starting this new venture, and I'm going to go out and try to help. Because I started getting hired by NFL teams and college teams, and in fact, I had some NFL and college teams offer to hire me as an exclusively, so I would never share that information with others. And I decided that I need to give this to kids. I need to provide this at where it matters the most. It shouldn't be secretive. It shouldn't be like that proprietary. I want to make it available,
right?
Because I always say this too to people. Like I didn't start in the NFL. Like no one that plays in the NFL started there. We started on the playgrounds, And so when you see kids in the youth leagues or in the high school programs, and you realize like that's where everything is a top-down model where we kind of emulate what we see at the NFL level, but which we need to change there. But really, the most effective work we can do is try by really informing and educating the coaches and the kids at the youth and high school level, teach them how to play better. And our program, we have a curriculum that teaches. Basically, our motto is safety through superior technique. And so the only thing that's sustainable in football, in my view, in terms of injuries, is teaching kids how to take safety into their own hands. It's through technique. And it's not helmets, because helmets, get a good helmet, but that's like saying, hey, I got a great airbag, so I'm going to be a lousy driver. That's not acceptable.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You really want to teach people and empower them, just like swimming. Like, hey, if you can't swim, like, oh, well, don't worry, I'll throw you a life raft. Well, that's not going to work all the time. So we want to really, focus in on skill development, teaching our kids, our coaches, and how to do this. And when we've had 100% adoption, we work with every level. So we have youth all the way up to NFL. We've had 100% adoption by coaches who have gone through our program, and that's important because getting guys to change. People ask me, how do you get guys to change the way they're doing it, especially old school guys? I'm like, well, it's real simple. It's like, because if you put performance number one, like, do you want to win or not? I mean, I ask them the question, do you feel that this is a better technique after feeling it, knowing what it looks like, watching the best of the world do it? Would you teach this or the methods that you're teaching currently? They're like, we'll teach this. We're teaching tip of the spear. And so once we get that buy-in, then we support them in their development. It is a change, but it's an upgrade, and it's an evolution in a positive way that allows us to actually take the head out of contact. That doesn't mean that there's going to be not potential head contact. It's going to happen at points, but that's where you want that helmet. But it's not the objective. So when you tell someone, hey, use your face to hit someone, you're only going to get one outcome there. but we're teaching kids how to use their hands and shoulders, and we make the joke, you don't move furniture around your house with your head. I mean, you shouldn't, hopefully not. But so why would you do that on the field? Like, there's better methodology. And so I'm really excited about it because I love doing it. I love helping people out, and the beauty of it, like I said, it scales at each and every level. So even when you take a youth kid, you're not dumbing down the sport to where, or the technique to where it's like, hey, cool, just do this for now to keep you safe, but then later we'll show you like another technique that you have to learn. This is something that it's universal, and it works, and it's got these foundations and principles that will carry on until, if these kids these kids end up going on and playing a long NFL career. They don't ever have to go backwards.
Right. That you hit on so many things that really stood out to me, and starting with the fact that we see so many athletes, regardless what sport, that end up having to stop playing because of injuries. And regardless of the level, I mean, most recently we just saw Andrew Luck, who retired from the NFL because of all the injuries he's had. Even this past weekend, we saw players that went down, MCL sprains. Nick Foles had to get surgery today. There are so many injuries in sports, and that's natural. That's going to happen. But why not minimize the injuries in sports as much as possible? Why not teach different foundations? Instead of the foundation being so focused on the sport, how about we also break it down into the movement and things like injury prevention, concussion prevention, ACL prevention. So I love that you're taking your program and you're teaching it to all ages, because it shouldn't just start at the NFL level. As kids, as they're starting to learn the game, they should also be learning these things. And so it's by no surprise that if players can stay healthy, then they can be more successful. If a team has less injuries, they're going to be, and now they're starting quarterback and they're starting center, and everyone else is healthy on the field. That translates directly into success, or should at least. So
no question. No question.
This is right. So this is a model that makes sense. I mean, it is similar to what you're talking about, where it's like coaches want to just teach the shortcut route instead of taking time to really teach the entire athlete, the entire player. How do you go into tackles? What types of steps? And I know that's something I've seen in soccer, a lot of ACL prevention, more concussion prevention work being done. So I do have one other thought that I was hoping you would say that I was waiting for. Why tip of the spear? How did that name come out of this program?
Well, okay, so when we talk about, it's a good question, so I should have maybe said that first. So the name tip of the spear, we're referring to the hands and the shoulders. What is it? So people say it's a military term because the tip of the spear is the first unit to go into combat to penetrate the enemy lines. Our definition of tip of the spear is the first and most meaningful action in an offensive. And when we talk about the spear, the tip of the spear, we're talking about our hands and we're talking about our shoulders. And that's the point that when we're developing those skills, it's not our head. The tip of the spear is literally, it started with our hands. So we developed, and we have a drill series. We have all these drills that we categorize in certain ways to develop and advance, like you said, the whole athlete. So we start with drills called shape drills. We have shape, sharpen, and polish drills. Shape drills are movement patterns that we want to create that are just consistent with, they're not necessarily football-specific techniques, but they're things you can incorporate into movements in the warm-ups and then throughout your strength and conditioning programs and whatever, just things that kids can do to start to develop movement patterns. For example, hip hinging, being able to extend the hips, using your hips to generate force. That's one thing kids have a hard time with. So why, if we tell coaches, why are you say you don't have enough time on the field to do practice and train the kids, but why are you spending 10 minutes doing jumping jacks? Like, when was the last time you saw a player do jumping jacks in a game? Like, it's ridiculous. And it's not to put anybody down. It's just that they're following a model that they were given. So we're saying, hey, here are drills you can do. Shape drills. Sharpen drills are football-specific drills that are going to be non-competitive, where you can work with a partner or without a partner that are going to refine a skill. And finally, going back in line with what we talked about earlier about competition and winning, polish. We call it polish drills are competitive drills. We're competing directly, and they don't always have to be like hardcore intensive contact drills. They're just competing. And so you can't grow what you don't measure. That's one of my favorite lines. It's like, if you're not measuring all the time And as a kid, so in the off season, for example, you don't even know if you're getting better. Your only marker of success is, well, my bench press went up 15%. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, does that mean that you're 15% better? No. I mean, does it mean your team's 15% better, or they're going to win 15% more games if your team collectively went up 15% in strength? No. But what we can do is, what kids can, since you're not getting access to, so like I said, losing is a great teacher. So giving kids a chance to experience wins and losses in other ways, and it doesn't have to be line up and hit people. It's just other ways to compete, and in the techniques we're teaching, so kids get the real time analysis and to see where they're at. So then when you get to the field, it's not, it's second nature. It's not like you get in this fight or flight thing and where you go back to revert back. So we want them to develop second nature habits. But I know it's a long-winded story to answer the tip of the spear. But yeah, it's all about using the hands and shoulders. But around that, see, the thing that I want to make it really clear is that it's simple, but it isn't easy. Because when you tell someone to use their hands, it's simple enough to say, hey man, I want you to use your hands, right? Yeah, don't use your head. And that goes on around the world now, and especially in high school. I mean, a lot of times, like, hey guys, the district athletic director will tell the coaches, hey, make sure you're not telling the kids to use their head. And the coach goes, okay, no problem. Hey guys, we're not going to use our head. Then the kids, unless you give a kid a specific instruction on how to use their hands, then you're kind of like confusing people, and it doesn't really yield the results you want. So we really have a full, comprehensive year-round skill development program where we give coaches modeling. Here's how it works, guys. This is how you do it. And if you follow this, and by the way, we hope you will deviate from it on some level because you feel like you found a better way. We hope people will evolve and make it their own. But the principles remain the same, and that is that we should be able to dominate people across from us without having to use our face and our head to do it. And here's how we do it. And these are the best practices, and we show how that works at every level. We've got examples of that. The best guys in the NFL, all pro players that use our techniques. It's cool to see, but it's just as important as we see that going on at the youth and high school levels.
Yeah, and you know what, Scott, I feel like we could have a whole segment in itself on, development, whether from a coaching perspective or just in general with players, because I see the jumping jacks comment is just like standing out to me so much. I see it like in soccer, for instance, coaches will, for like a high school soccer team, will say if you can't pass a 6-minute mile, you don't make the team. Or if you can't, jumping jacks, we'll do jumping jacks for 20 minutes. These are all things that do not directly, and this as an athlete, correlate to being a good in your sport. If you can run a 5-minute mile, that does not make you a soccer player. If you can do jumping jacks for 20 minutes, it does not make you a football player. So that in itself, a whole other rant we can get into, but I just love the fact that you're taking skills and breaking them down into game-like movements that kids are training in, or NFL players or college players. It's still game-like movements, but it's breaking down the movements so that you can understand why you're doing it, step by step, how you're doing it. And now with each progression, you get a little quicker at it, better at it, and more natural with it. So where can people follow what you're doing? This is all, it sounds like this is something that, we're only at the tip of the spear, or the beginning of the success that you're going to be having with this program that you've created.
Thank you. You guys can go to tipofthespearfootball.com. That's our website. Also, if you social media, I would say go to Twitter. We give out a lot of information, like put out videos. So our Twitter handle is tipofthespearfb, at tipofthespearfb, and then my personal Twitter is scottpeters53, scottpeters53, and I put a lot of video out there to try to help people, and we have everything online that you could possibly want, like videos and stuff. But then we do in-person clinics. We certify coaches from youth all the way up to the NFL, which we don't do certifications at the NFL level, but all the levels below, and it's fun. So we'd love to help anybody that's interested.
Nice. And I do have to quickly ask before we close the show, do you have a favorite team? Is there someone you're rooting for? Very quick.
Oh, man. I don't. I have favorite people, though. I watch that. So I don't care what team wins. I care about people, though. And those are my friends, and I don't, because I played through too many teams, I'm like, I like Arizona State, I guess.
Okay, there you go. Arizona State. I love that. Favorite players and favorite teams. Nice. Well, Scott Peters, more than just an NFC champion and former offensive lineman, but you're doing amazing things for football and just all sports in general, starting with the youth level. So thank you so much for joining us on the show this week.
Yeah, thank you so much, too. It was awesome getting here.